My name is Rebecca Meloragno, and my thesis is called Rooted in Creativity, Promoting Experimentation and Creative Thinking in the Classroom. How can creative thinking be further echoed in our current education system and classrooms so it becomes common practice? How can we as educators and as a society encourage an environment of engagement and a culture that promotes creativity? The world is constantly looking for the next best thing, the most creative idea, something that has never been seen before, originality. Bosses and high executives throw out the word innovative and groundbreaking and search high and low for creative individuals. We live in a society that does not teach these ideals to our upcoming generation. With constant standardization, it is impossible to branch beyond the typical answer and way of thinking. Therefore, we are stifling the very nature of the creative process. I see a problem in our education system that I want to fix. We focus on grades and test scores. We directly promote this false idea that high test scores correlate to success and intelligence in life. But we should be focusing on critical and creative thinking, trial and error, and accepting failure as part of the process. That is what really promotes learning and successful adults later in life. Ken Robinson puts it this way: for all their popularity and sway over educational policies, IQ tests and SATs do not assess the whole range of a student's intellectual abilities. I must be proactive and make sure I do my part in my classroom, and at least that will impact hundreds of students. I feel as if I have this unique ability to understand both methods of training. On one hand, I went to art school and received my BFA, and now I'm finishing my thesis for my MFA in graphic design. These two programs have been crucial in how I understand and teach. I now promote thinking and process over the final product. I have also gone to receive my teaching certification to become a certified instructor at the K-12 level. This training helped me understand how to deliver and differentiate content and curriculum, and also allowed me to understand how educators are formally trained. I quickly noticed that there was a large discrepancy in these two training sessions and what was considered important and what we should be emphasizing. I believe the emphasis on tests and grades is old-fashioned. It does not give students the true skills to become creative and innovative thinkers in a world that is so desperately looking for new and original. Every day I go to work and I get to do art, and I get to share that love with the younger generation. I teach 8 different classes over the course of one school year. I teach middle school in the morning for 80 minutes a day, and then I have high school for the remainder of the day. The high school classes that I teach are sculpture and ceramics, painting and mixed media, drawing, graphic design, advanced ceramics, advanced art, and AP studio art. Within every class, I attempt to incorporate growth mindset, experimentation, and creative thinking. Obviously, with teaching comes some difficulties, behavior issues, acting out, differentiation, etc. But I find that when a student is focused on something that they want to do, they will be proactive and engaged in that learning. As educators, we teach in the way that we were taught because that is all we know. If I want to promote creative thinking, the development of individual and conceptual ideas, and the execution of those ideas through risk-taking, the guidelines must be clear and achievable for all students and all types of learners. Within my book and study, I review a rubric that I created with my colleague and use in order to properly assess the right skills. Students are so obsessed with grades. I constantly get asked, "Miss Mel, if I change this one thing or if I add to it, will my grade go up?" That is the wrong approach to take. Instead, what happens when we flip the grading system completely? What if we weren't grading on typical things that kids are expected to be graded on? What if we looked at things that really made students lifelong learners? How they are able to adapt to situations, how they are able to take whatever they're given and go with it so that they can be successful in understanding how they learn and approach situations in the future. For example, students are not graded on how pretty or how nice their artwork turned out. Rather, they're graded on the conceptual thought behind that, the work ethic that they put in, and their willingness to try new things, even if they might fail at it. Because remember, failure is never a bad thing if you're learning something through that process. Creativity can take on many different faces, but it's achieved through experimentation, pushing your limits and boundaries, develop conceptual ideas over technical form. It is trying a new technique, skill, or method. It is combining methods to communicate a message. It is thinking of your other senses. It is pulling from associations, metaphors, connotations, and different subject matters and topics. Experimentation is crucial to development and creativity. It leads to new discoveries, thinking outside typical boundaries, memorable experiences, conceptual meaning, experimenting with materials and techniques, and limiting the comparison amongst peers. By completing fieldwork and using data from my own classroom, creating an environment that encourages process work in my classroom, researching current and past practices of education, and practicing this idea with my own work, I will be closer to answering the questions posed earlier. We can all agree that creativity has become an overused fluff word used to describe anyone who is remotely good at art. But what is creativity really? To start, let's define the word creativity. The English Oxford Dictionary defines creativity as the use of imagination or original ideas to create something, inventiveness. I think of creativity like a muscle. The more we use our creativity muscle, the stronger it becomes. So many times we are expected to think in a certain way and are frowned upon methods that are unexpected or unapproved. This is seen in the classroom on a daily basis. In fact, when students are given the freedom to try his or her own ideas out, most times they are just lost. They are looking for instructions and the proper way to do something, and they often look around to see how most of their peers are approaching the situation. How is it when we prompt a high school class to create a project in art, 15 out of 25 students will have a similar idea? So what are we doing wrong? So much emphasis goes into the end product when we are creating that we lose the focus and the idea of the experimentation part. That is because our current model of education has been around for more than 100 years. edX CEO Anand Agarwal says, "It is pathetic that our education system has not changed in hundreds of years," and others add that it no longer works. Yet we still use this system and teachers are still trained with the specific standard used in this method. The current factory model of education was established during the industrial age when we focused on whole class instruction and standardization. The goal was to create cookie-cutter adults that can be used in a society for the industrial age and for jobs. But Ken Robinson puts it this way: being creative is not a matter of inspiration. It requires skill, craft, and control of materials, and a reciprocating process of critical evaluation. These abilities can be taught. There is both biological and psychological evidence in support of creativity and the benefits that creativity has on mindset and thinking. Within my book, I provide lesson plans that I practice in my classroom to enforce the ideals. It fulfills the standard that I must meet in each lesson for the state that I teach in. It poses essential questions and it has pointed and specific benefits within each lesson. In addition, the classroom itself as a creative environment can be strengthened and fostered. My thesis exhibition walks you through a lesson that I often do in my classroom. Students choose one theme, 3 materials, and 3 tools from labeled buckets, and their challenge is to create a masterpiece with what they select. They cannot use anything else, and they have to illustrate their chosen theme in any way that they can, abstractly, non-objectively, conceptually, or realistically. Many times, people believe creativity is expressed when we strip away all the limitations and restrictions and allow total freedom. However, that's not necessarily true. Requiring students to use what they have in order to demonstrate something really shows what they can come up with and how they can adapt with what they have in order to make it happen. I encourage you to try this activity for yourself and work your creativity muscle. With the link provided, you can randomly, digitally select your variables. With this thesis, it is my hope that other fellow educators here in the United States will also see the need for educational reform. I am still a fairly new educator and certainly do not pretend to have all the answers, but it is my goal to show that this way of thinking and teaching is not only possible and doable in very practical ways, but it's very beneficial in promoting independent creative thinkers, as hopefully shown throughout the books, the lessons, and the data that I've given. As educators, we have a duty. This duty is to be aware of our current system and make possible advancements for a better future for our students. Small changes are the start of an ongoing process. This thesis acts as a very first step. creativity can be fostered and is achievable.